Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where tour players, legends, and the top instructors in the game share their stories, insights, and playing lessons. Join Chris every week as he talks with the greats of the game.
You are the smartest guy I've spoken to on radio or television in my career.
And Chris, again, you're knocking out of the park. You're like 8 under par in this interview.
If I ever have any research, I'm hiring your tail to be the research man. You're the best.
You're a fantastic host and tremendously respected in the golf community.
Yeah, Chris, you do an amazing job, and your listeners are super lucky to have you, and it's always my pleasure.
Chris Mascaro is the king of the golf podcast. Don't miss him on Tuesdays.
Now, here's your host, Chris Mascaro.
Hello, folks, and thank you for joining me this week on Next on the Tee. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro. I hope your week is going really well. Countdown is on for me to go up and visit my friends up at the Macklemore. Cannot wait. This week on the show, I've got some amazing people that I get to share with you. Starting off in part one of the show, I'm going to be joined by Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Famer Dennis Satyshur. If you're not familiar with Dennis, by the time we get to the end of his story, there's going to be no doubt in your mind about why he's a Hall of Famer. He won the Pennsylvania High School State Golf Championship in 1968, played football and golf on a scholarship at Duke. He worked for Bill Strausbaugh for 3 years and then won the award that is named in Bill's honor. He and Tom Kite are great friends. In fact, Tom asked Dennis to be an assistant captain on the 1997 Ryder Cup team, which happened to be Tiger's rookie year. He's good friends with so many legends in our game, including Augusta National Chairman Fred Ridley, and our mutual friend Bill Mallon, who set this thing up. Thank you very much, Bill. Dennis is going to leave you breathless with all his great stories. You'll hear that interview in just a few minutes. Following Dennis, we'll get our regular monthly visit from Dr. Bob Winters. This week, Dr. Bob is going to share his insights on what to do if you have that blow-up hole, like Nelly Korda did at the Women's U.S. Open. He also talks about what sets his Asian players apart from his American players. What do they do differently that makes them so dominant out on the LPGA Tour? Doc lends his ideas. He's going to be along and join me about 45 minutes from now. I'll kick off part two of this week's show with a return visit from PGA Tour Superstore Chief Merchandising Officer Randy Peisch. Randy and I are going to talk about golf as a family hobby. Golf is no longer something that has to separate families in the evenings or on weekends whenever we play the game. It's a game that we can all go out and play together. We'll also talk about the memories we make with family and friends out on the golf course and how wonderful that makes this game, how special it is that we get to share so many good times together out on the golf course. Plus, of course, Randy is going to give us some great Father's Day gift ideas as well as we look ahead to celebrating all of our fathers. So excited to have Randy back as part of the show. Always very special when he stops by. And then we'll round things out this week with one of Golf Magazine's top 100 instructors, Jeff Smith. Jeff's going to take us out west to his new summer teaching home in Scottsdale, Arizona. We'll also talk about the evolution of the golf swing. Remember, we all used to finish in a reverse C kind of posture, so bad for our backs. And now we've got a healthier way to do it, finishing perpendicular. So we'll talk about how we transition from the reverse C to perpendicular. We'll also get a tip for how to break through that score barrier you might have, whether it's breaking 100, breaking 90, or breaking 80. So a lot of great stuff on tap with Jeff. He is just one of the most wonderful people that you'll ever meet. Looking forward to having him as part of the show as well. He'll join me about an hour and a half from now. So great stuff on tap for you this week here on Next on the Tee. But as always, thank you all so much for tuning in and taking the journey with me. All right, but let's kick things off by talking about the great folks over at the Pittsburgh Brewing Company and Iron City Beer, a company that I have loved my entire life and have been drinking since I was 21 years old, of course. Whether you're a hacker or a scratcher, the secret to a successful day on the links is knowing when it's time to grab an iron, even if that means keeping it in the bag till the 19th hole. If it's been a while since you've reached for Pittsburgh staple beer, it's time to revisit Iron City. Thanks to their incredible new facility in Creighton, the best-tasting Iron City beer ever made is now available at a course near you. Iron City pairs well with any lie and sky and serves as a friendly reminder that there's always next round. Iron City Beer, best enjoyed while enjoying life. Now let's talk about golf getaways and buddies trip locations. When you're thinking about that, think about our friends over at the Macklemore, which is a wonderful resort located just south of Chattanooga, Tennessee, high atop Lookout Mountain. It is a casual 2-hour drive from Atlanta, Nashville, and Birmingham. The existing Highlands course is now ranked in the top 100 courses you can play in the U.S. by Golf Digest. The 18th hole is ranked in the top 10 finishing holes in the world. A second course, The Keep, is under construction and will open summer of 2024. The Keep is a Bill Bergen, Reese Jones design and features a 1.5 miles of dramatic cliff edge, with every inch of that edge filled up with a golf hole. A world-class hotel, Cloudland Lookout Mountain Curio Collection by Hilton, will open spring of 2024. Both have incredible views into historic Macklemore Cove, 1,200 feet below. You got to see it to believe it, folks. Stay, dine, and play golf above the clouds at Macklemore. Go online to macklemore.com to book your stay and play package. Now let's talk about the new P790 irons from TaylorMade. From the very beginning, P790 irons have been rooted in clean aesthetics and thoughtful design. However, their true beauty is found beneath the surface. With AI-optimized weighting and speed foam air on the inside, every iron is uniquely designed to perform exactly how you need it to. As striking as they are on the outside, their true beauty lies within. Learn more about the new P790 irons from TaylorMade by checking out their website at TaylorMadeGolf.com. Now making his Next on the Tee debut with me is Dennis Satyshur. Dennis is from Erie, Pennsylvania. He was a 3-sport star at East High. He played football, basketball, and golf. He won the state golf championship back in 1968. He received a football scholarship to attend Duke University, and in 1971 he was named captain of the team. He also played on the Duke golf team and lettered 3 years on that team as well. In 1976 he began working at Pinehurst Country Club. From there he moved on to Columbia Country Club in Chevy Chase, Maryland, where he worked for Bill Strausbaugh for 3 years. From there he moved on to Camelback Golf Club in Scottsdale, Arizona, and then to Pine Tree Golf Club in Delray, Florida. In 1979, he earned his PGA membership, and in 1982, he became the head PGA professional at Bent Pine Country Club in Vero Beach, Florida. 5 years later, he was selected as the head PGA professional at Baltimore Country Club. Then in 1990, he found his long-term home at Caves Valley Golf Club northwest of Baltimore. He spent 31 years there. In fact, he was the only director of golf that Caves Valley ever had up to his retirement. Dennis was inducted into the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame in 1997. That same year, Tom Kite asked him to be an assistant captain on the U.S. Ryder Cup team, and I couldn't be more thrilled that I get to have Dennis with me here this week on Next on the Tee. Hey, Dennis, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, I appreciate it so much, Chris. It's a privilege and honor to be with you. And as I listen to your summary of my career, it gave me a good feeling because you were right on, spot on with everything. And, we grew up in Erie, one of 7 children. And my dad was a blue-collar foundry worker for General Electric and went to a public high school, East High School. And, we played football, basketball, and golf. Probably my best year in sport, Chris, was my senior year in high school, where I was second team All-State in football, second team All-State in basketball, and the state golf champion.
Wow.
So that from there has probably been downhill, but it's been a good run. I had a chance to go to Notre Dame, Ohio State, or Penn State for football. And my dad, hit that corner saloon every night and was talking to the guys and said, I just spoke to Ara Parsegian and Woody Hayes and Joe Paterno. And when I told him I was going to Duke, he said, Duke? He said, where is Duke? What is Duke? And he didn't talk to me for a month. I thought, geez, this is a northern school in the South. Good education, a small student body, played a good football schedule. And I thought I'd get hurt playing football and play golf, and they have a really good golf course right on campus. But I got behind a really good quarterback and didn't get to play until my senior year. But back then, golf was just in the spring, not fall and spring. And today you could never do two sports like that. But back then we had an early spring practice, and I was able to play half a golf season. And the golf coach was a retired football coach. He coached with Wallace Wade, and his name was Dumpy Hegler. And that fifth spot on a team, it's always crowded at the last spot. But I think my playing football and his being a football coach, he called everyone boy, and he said, "Boy," he said, "I can't say your name, but when I sneeze, that's you."
Wow.
So I've been called a lot of things, but sneezes happens to be one of them. But I played, and back then, of course, you think you can do anything. And once I thought to myself, once I just played golf and not football and golf, that I could play the tour. And a name you may not remember, or you may, it's a Western Pennsylvania guy named Jim Simons.
Absolutely.
Well, Jim was the guy that I beat by a stroke in the Pennsylvania State High School tournament. But he went to Wake. I was at Duke, and we played some against each other. And he told me about he and some of his guys going in 1972. The mini tours were just starting down in Florida, and he said, "If you're going to try the tour school in the fall, you ought to go down there." So I said, "I'll do it." So I can still remember the first day I'm down there. I see Jim Simons on the tee and three other guys, and I'm carrying my clubs over like Rodney Dangerfield, boom, boom, boom. And I see Jim, and on the tee with Jim was Tom Kite, Andy North, Mark Hayes, and Jim Simons.
Wow.
All college All-Americans, Walker Cup. So, I'm trying to be funny. I say, "Hey, guys, Jim, how you doing? You guys have four?" Well, there are four guys standing there. And they look at me like, "Who is this stiff?" But long story short, they let me play along. And Andy North said, Sata, how do you say your last name? What is that? I said, "Well, it's Russian, and it's a difficult name." But Andy North is kind of he's always the guy to speak up. He says, "You played football, huh?" I said, "Well, hard to believe, but I did." He said, "How about if we call you football?" I said, "Are you kidding? I'll take it." When I played football, I had my worst nickname. He said, "What was that?" I said, they called me the midget because I was the smallest guy on the team. But to graduate from the midget to football, and that day, halfway around, I said to Tom Kite, I said, he had those big glasses on and hats. I'm looking at him in this swing. I'm thinking to myself, "Geez, I'll be beating this guy by Labor Day." That's what I thought. Of course, you think you can do anything. So he had a reputation even then of being a practicer, practice all the time. So I said, "Tom, I understand you like to practice a little bit." He said, "Yes, I do." I said, "How would you like some company?" He said, looked me right in the eye, said, "No, thank you." So I said, "Well, okay, I'm going to be stalking you then, because wherever you go practice, that's where I'm going." So we were in Tampa at the time. So he said, "Okay, tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, Waffle House." Well, there's about 150 Waffle Houses in Tampa. So he was hoping that I couldn't find the one where he was. But that's where we met and got to be friends. And, that friendship's lasted to this day, over 50 years. And, I had the privilege, as you mentioned, to be the first vice captain, the first one ever for the American Ryder Cup team. And, whatever you think it would be, being on the team, even as a Guy Friday, just an errand guy, it was better. It was bigger. Back then, the U.S. team, when playing overseas, would have dinner with the sitting president on Sunday night. So we had dinner with Bill Clinton, President Clinton, in the Waldorf Astoria in New York. He was speaking to the United Nations on Monday. And, I'm riding over in limousines I got in the limousine. There was Tiger Woods, Freddie Couples, Davis Love, and me. So, what's wrong with that lineup card? But we had dinner with the president of the United States in the Waldorf Astoria. Now, if you know Pennsylvania, that is a long way from Erie, PA, I can tell you. And then we flew the Concorde over, and the next morning met by the King and Queen of Spain and Seve and on and on. But Tiger was a rookie that year. We were loaded. And boy, we had Justin Leonard won the British, Davis Love the PGA, Tiger the Masters. And, Seve had guys I hadn't heard of. Ignacio Garrido, Per Ulrich Johansson. They had guys like, who are these guys? But it rained, all 3 days, stop, start. And we ended up losing by a point. And our 3 major championship winners, Tiger, Justin, and Davis, between them played 13 matches. Loaded question, how many did they win? 1. And they tied 4 and lost 9. So, my fingers couldn't write Jeff Maggart, Scott Hoke, or Lee Jansen if they could write Tiger Woods, Davis Love, and, they were the guns, they were the guys, and you played them. But, Konstantin Roca, I saw a video, and he really hit the nail on the head for these Europeans. Konstantin said, and he played Tiger the last day in singles.
Right. Yep.
I was standing between the two, and I looked at Roca. He's got one eye closed. He hadn't shaved, belly sticking out. And I look at Tiger, and I'm thinking to myself, Tiger, why don't we give him 2 aside? I don't know. and Roca birdied the first 4 holes, beat him like a step job. But what Roca said, he said, to me, he said, the Ryder Cup is everything. I give everything I have in each match I play. So on Sunday, I can say I have no more to give. Now,
wow.
That's pretty strong, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, those guys just, but anyway, it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And Ben Crenshaw called me a couple of years later. He was the next captain. And he said, Dennis, sorry about the result there, but if there's anything that you would do differently or want to share with our team, I would really appreciate it. And I said, Ben, thank you for the call. And actually there is. He said, well, geez, please, what is it? I said, well, Seve had an assistant. He had one person in each match with the kind of the radio hooked up. And by 11 o'clock in the morning for the afternoon pairings, you have to turn in your lineup. So if there was a roar somewhere, like Tom would say to me, football, what is it? I said, well, geez, I'm on number 3. It's nothing here. Well, Seve would have immediate reaction. And these guys all knew golf and knew the players. And he would say, how are Roca and so-and-so getting along? Or who's playing well? Or, he had input from each group every day. And Ben said, boy, that is a great idea. So what he did is, I guess the fact we lost with a club professional as an assistant captain and a vice captain, it was kind of one and done for the PGA. Because the next year, Ben took Bruce Litsky and Bill Rogers, and he took 2 caddies, his caddy and Tom Watson's caddy, and put one guy in each group, to do what Seve had done the match before. And now there's all former players and future captains on the vice captain side, and there must be 5 or 6 of them. But a great, great thrill to have been a part of it for sure. But, as you mentioned, the guys I worked for, Chris, in my way working up to being the director of golf at Caves, Lou Miller was the guy at Pinehurst, terrific organizer, great PGA professional. And then, of course, Bill Strausbaugh for 3 years. And then in the winter, I went to Camelback with Roger Maxwell and then Pine Tree with Bob Ross. But, Bill Strausbaugh having the PGA name an award in his honor was very appropriate. This guy was just unbelievable. And I think I learned a lot from each of the pros that I worked for, but probably the most in dealing with people, his people skills and his interest in people and making them feel like, he had been waiting for them all day to see them, was something that I tried to not be Bill Strausbaugh, but to incorporate into Dennis Satyshur. And I think as my career went along, a little bit of the quarterback in me, and the talking side of it, applying the principles that Bill had done at Columbia, were a big part of my success, or any success I had.
So let's take that a step further. You worked for the man for 3 years, and then in 2004, you win the award named in his honor. That had to be incredibly meaningful for you.
Well, what the PGA does, they have 12, maybe 13 now, national awards, and there are 41 sections. So each section awards a winner in that section for the Player of the Year, Teacher of the Year, Bill Strausbaugh Award winner. And Bill's was for enhancing the image of the PGA professional and mentoring young assistants and getting involved with charities in your area. But as you won in your section, 41 of you were put into effectively a national contest for the national Bill Strausbaugh Award winner of the year. So what you probably don't know is that, the first year I won in the section, I go into the nationals. And again, being naive, I'm thinking, I've worked for Bill and this is going to be easy here. Well, I didn't win it. And what they do is they have last year's award winner call the guys that didn't win, and the president of the PGA calls the winner. So he called, and last year's winner, I forget his name now, and he said, Dennis, sorry to inform you that you did not win this year, but congratulations on winning. And you said, I said, well, who did win? He said, well, Tom Neaporti from Wingfoot. I thought, well, he could have an award named after him. What a great winner, and you couldn't really be upset, with that. But he said, we want you to apply again next year. It was that close, Well, so I do it, and I'm waiting to hear. I didn't win again. And I said, well, who did win? He said, well, Mike Harmon from Secession. I said, geez, this guy's a superstar. Of course, of course he won it. So finally, in my third go around, I did win. And, as a national award of 28,000 pros or whatever there are, it's, being recognized by your peers, by your fellow professionals, to any national award is a big deal. But it had a special meaning with Bill. Working for him, we worked all day, every day, 6 days a week. And on the seventh day, we washed the carts and played a pro-am in the afternoon. And my second year, I said to Bill, Bill, could we have a schedule? He said, we have one. But I think, that's just the way he grew up. That's the way they worked, and that's how we worked. And, as I said, I learned so much from him, and then winning his award. And back then they did the award at the PGA show, in that big theater there. And, it was a really big deal. And the PGA does an excellent job of really featuring the winners of these different awards. And, so that was a big deal for me, for sure. The Ryder Cup, that, and being at Caves Valley, usually pros want to go to the older clubs. They're established and have their reputations. But for me, going from, and my story in Baltimore was I left the Queen Mary, which was the Baltimore Country Club, 5 Farms, for the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. These guys are going to do a national club in Baltimore. This is not Palm Beach or Palm Springs. This is Baltimore. And, it was a good time for me to take a chance. I was 40 years old, and I felt like I was a better match for a national club than a second, third generation club, where they're kind of set in their ways. And this had people from all over the country. They were going to host national championships, have a caddy program, all the things you could roll into something very special. And I thought to myself, boy, if I could just get some of the vodka these guys are drinking, I, I could feel good too, because who in the world's going to do this? But what the hell, I'm going to take a shot. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And these guys were very, very thoughtful, and it made me professional emeritus, and have been unbelievably generous, and made me feel like I really contributed to, there's plenty of choppy water in the second, third, fourth club. When the economy gets a little choppy, the first things to go are those extra clubs. But we were able to create an atmosphere that people enjoyed, people liked. And, we have Michael Bloomberg as a member, and, the owner of the Ravens, Steve Bisciotti, and the president of Pine Valley, Jim Davis, and the chairman of Augusta, Fred Ridley, and Tom Friedman, and on, Barack Obama. And these guys have more places to go than there are days in the week. And for them to continue to participate with caves, and come to caves, kind of made me feel like we had created something that, people enjoyed experiencing. And your favorite anything has somebody that makes you feel good about coming there, and whether it's where you get your hair cut, where you like to go to eat or drink, or your dry cleaning, doesn't matter. You go places because there's somebody there that makes you feel good. And we took that approach at Cave, and we had a good team there, great team spirit, and it's in its 34th year now, and we just finished regrassing, and Tom Fazio came back in and was able to do a lot more things that he hadn't been able to do before because of either environmental restrictions or our financial condition or whatever. But we've really made some improvements. The BMW is coming back next year in 25, and we just couldn't be more excited. So I have to say I'm about the luckiest guy I know. If I felt any better, I think I'd be twins. But it's just been a great run. It's been terrific.
You mentioned the atmosphere that you created there, and I was reading about Caves Valley and the culture that you helped establish, and it said one of the things that you did from a cultural perspective is that there's a quote out there that says, "Leave it at the gate, all your money, all your titles, and when you come in, it's no longer about you, it's about us, and it's about the club." Talk about that.
Well, that's something that it kind of evolved, I guess, over time, because people were doing that, and the people that I respected and admired the most did just that. They were somebody special in their respective areas, but they enjoyed being a part of something bigger than themselves. And we were collectively, when Caves Valley hits the sled, it goes. When they hit it one by one, doesn't go too far. And we kind of built up that saying. And, I would, with one of our members, Mike Kudak, spend a couple hours and then I'd play 9 holes with every prospective member. And that became part of our story. We just leave it at the gate. And here we wear Caves Valley gear. We wear the shirt, the hat, the sweater, the jacket, whatever. And that tells me and everyone else here, you're on the Caves Valley team. I know where you've been. You've been to Wingfoot, you've been to Oakmont, you've been to all the places. But when you're here, you're a member of Caves. You're in the huddle, and you wear the uniform. And we have nice uniforms here, and we have a nice logo. But, as we talked to him, and I said, here, our chairman calls the plays. And I would say, what we do when he calls the plays? We run them. we don't say, like, half of a club for a tour event or something would say, why are we doing that? It's inconvenient. It's this, it's that. I don't know. Well, we don't have that at Cape, and our goal when we talked to these people was the worst thing that could happen from this meeting is 2 months from now, 6 weeks from now, after you join, you said, geez, I wish somebody had told me that, or I didn't really understand that. So we're just very open, and we're not saying we're better than anybody. We're just saying this is how we do it. And the rope's not ripped tight. I won't say there's not a budge in it, but we do things a certain way at Caves. We're respectful to those people, each other, and those people that work there. And something respectful can be like not taking mulligan, or keeping up with the group ahead of you and being thoughtful of the group behind you, so that the other people playing can enjoy their day as much as you're enjoying yours. But what I felt good about is we told them, leave it at the gate, and to almost to a person, they would say, Dennis, I didn't know what to expect with this meeting. And when I came into it, I thought I wanted to join Caves. Now I know I do. Sign me up. And, and I'd say in the playing meeting, we're playing 9 holes, they'd be a little nervous. And I'd say, geez, don't take this the wrong way, but it really doesn't matter how you play. That's not what this is about. What it's about is, how to be thoughtful for a caddy. He's carrying 2 bags. You're in the bunker. Maybe you can offer to rake the bunker so he can get up on the green and read the putt for the other guy's caddying for. Things like that. Pace of play. Keeping up. Just taking care of our place, fixing ball marks and divots and things like that. So again, people, after we played, let's say, geez, thank you. I really enjoyed that, and count me in. So, it's just something that evolved. But, the more we said it, the more we did it, and then we saw it in our membership, part of, how people behave there. They're friendly. They look at people and say good morning, or say thank you, or whatever. And kind of, a bit old fashioned, how people used to act, where they had good manners, tucked their shirt in and took their hat off, and they were thoughtful of each other. So there's a bit of that the game, if it's done in a setting like this, you can go back to those good fundamentals, the way we were brought up. You think about how our parents were standing up when a woman came into the room, or, just those old fashioned good things. We really tried to promote that. And frankly, I think people enjoyed it because they kept coming, and they'd come back, and they'd bring their best friends or best customers there and say, I really want you to meet Dennis, or I want you to meet so-and-so, or I hope we can get this caddy. Because there was a pride that developed and evolved, and is there to this day, in a very strong position for a relatively young club. We're 34th season. So, the support of the membership and the leadership, we've had 3 chairmen in 34 years. And, the leadership was just what we needed at the time. Our first chairman was a salesman. Our second one was a CFO, CEO of the Rouse Company, and kind of got us on a little better financial footing. And our current chairman, Steve Fader, just keeps making us better, improving our facility, our golf course. There's a commitment from one of the clubs, one of our members, that they use at their club, that they are committed to excellence and continued improvement. Now that says a lot in a few words, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Committed to excellence and continued improvement. So things like that can apply to a lot of things, but we try and do that at Caves, and we look out for our people. I would have a list of every member on the property every day, and I'd scratch off the members as I saw them. So, it'd be like 3 o'clock, 3:30. I'm looking, geez, there are 2 guys here that I haven't seen. I got to ride out in the course and see them. So I'd ride out, I'd pull up, and everybody say, geez, Dennis, what's the matter? Are we playing too slow? No, I said, well, actually, no. Joe, I missed you when you teed off. I was in a meeting. I just wanted to come out and say hello and meet your guests. And that kind of thing, people like, and we did that. And we had a list of every member on the property every day. So, I just made that part of what I did, and people seem to like it.
I can see why. you spent a few years early in your career at Pinehurst. Obviously, the U.S. Open is going back there here next month. You going to go down and check it out? Have you been back to Pinehurst lately?
No, I haven't been lately. Playing at Duke and being in North Carolina, I played Pinehurst #2 a lot. I played the North-South Amateur Tournament a lot when I was in college. And then working there, it's like a time capsule there. It's like going back into time at Pinehurst. That very quaint downtown and the Carolina Hotel and the masterpiece at #2, what Donald Ross did in his day with, the equipment he didn't have and things. It's just such a good golf course. When the first time I played it, I'm thinking, what's the big deal here? But it's just, the greens are deceptively small. And when you miss the greens, they're a couple feet up in the air and the chip has to be just right. And it's just so well done and so challenging. I'm sure it will be another great championship. And the people of North Carolina love Pinehurst. And the volunteers come from all over the state. And there's probably not enough people in Pinehurst if they all did it to get as many volunteers as they need. But they'll have a great championship. I'm sure of that. And, because of my history of having played there and worked there, #2 is virtually untouched. I know Crenshaw and Coore went in there and did a few things, but they're not moving greens or doing much to the actual layout. Payne Stewart's history there, I'm sure we'll hear a lot, see what he did there. So sad to lose him the way we did, but that was one of his famous moments there when he had that cut off rain jacket, made that putt on the 18th hole to win the championship. Was one of those moments in golf for sure. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. But when you go to those tournaments, you don't see that much, and we're so spoiled watching it on TV. You can watch the leaders almost play the whole round. And, if you miss somebody holding out a shot or doing something terrific or whatever, they show it. So, going to the Masters or something like that, I would do early in the week and then try and be home on the weekends to see really, who's playing great that week and who ends up winning.
Having Fred Ridley as a member there at Caves Valley, have you reciprocated? Have you been down and got to play Augusta National?
I have played it a couple times. We have some members at Caves that are members there, and it's hard to put into words the feeling that you have playing Augusta. Just coming in, going down Magnolia Lane, and there's so much history there. When I took my first divot there, I felt like I looked around. I said, "I'm sorry." I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to knock a hole in this carpeted fairway. But it's such a special place. And they, that continued improvement that I referenced there, they just keep making it better. And Fred has been to me, he's a longtime friend. Fred played the first round at Caves Valley. Tom Fazio said, "Dennis, my suggestion is not to bring a pro in. Sometimes they bring a pro in and he plays an exhibition on a new course and the people come out and watch." He said, if you bring a pro in, one, you have to pay him. And two, people tend to watch the pro and not look at the course. So he said, the guys, why don't you get a couple amateurs and we'll play a little opening exhibition. I'll come in and we'll take a walk around the course. So I got Jay Siegel, Vinnie Giles, Danny Yates, and I called Fred Ridley. And Fred said, normally, Dennis, not a problem. But he said, right now I'm playing so poorly, I'm going to pass. And I said, no, you're not going to pass, Fred. I said, your partner is the best amateur since Bobby Jones, Jay Siegel. And you don't have to post a score. We're just going to play a little 4-ball match. And, he came up, did a great job, as they all did. And, he's been, he doesn't come back that much, a couple times a year, but he's been a great member, very thoughtful. And I just love the way he's grown with the job at Augusta. He's very comfortable now in what his duties are. Billy Payne brought him in as the chairman of the competition when the guy who had done that before was retiring. And Fred met Reg Murphy at Caves at that opening round. And Fred took a liking to him. And it took about 10 years, but he took him up the USGA mountain. And Fred became president of the USGA. And, to this day, he thinks that had, a lot to do with his being invited to Augusta. So, as you move up the mountain, the circle and the weaving gets a little tighter. And he's just been great, as so many of our guys have, but very humble, and respectful of the game and of what we were trying to do at Caves. And he loves feeling like he helped contribute to, who we are today, which he has.
Dennis, one more before I let you go. But now that you've retired from there, what's next for you?
Well, it took some adjusting. I'm in my third year of that. And, in the red zone of life, I just turned 74. So I don't want to turn the ball over in the red zone. I want to take my time getting into the end zone. But, when you work, just like you, when you work a lot, you're working. And when you're not working, you're thinking about work, and so when you stop that, there's obviously some gaps and some holes that need to be filled time-wise. And Bob Ford, who's a longtime friend, two Western PA boys, has a company called GBN, Golf Business Network. And part of that is like a search group. There are 4 of us in it now. He asked me to join him a year ago. And when a club is looking for a superintendent, golf professional, now even general manager, they would hire a company like ours to bring in candidates. They would talk about what they were looking for, and we would bring candidates to them, to select. So that was that was something. These are core clubs all over the country that we've worked with: Austin Country Club and club out in Palm Springs and in Scottsdale, Medina. So that's been fun, learning more about the clubs, meeting the young professionals, and trying to get a good match between a club and what they're looking for and the professional. So that was helpful in filling one of those gaps. And then our chairman, we have a foundation at Caves, which is we started in the beginning, but to this date has given almost $2 million away to caddies and kids to go to school, first tee kids. And, we're involved in many things in our community. We've gotten involved through the Western Golf Association that we're helping fund an Evans Scholar House at the University of Maryland. And they're going to call it the Caves Valley Evans Scholar House. That's where the caddies stay. They go on full scholarships through the Western Golf Association. But, the foundation has benefactors. And he asked me to work with the foundation to grow our benefactor group and to keep them informed and involved with what we're doing in the foundation. So between GBN and the foundation and, a golf swing that doesn't work so well anymore, I kind of fill up the days and the weeks.
I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Bill Mallon, too, by the way. And Bill is the one that introduced us virtually, and he's become a wonderful friend of the show. Talk about your relationship with him.
Well, we played on the golf team together. Bill had a fabulous career. He played our number 1 guy. He was a couple years behind me. And ended up working with Bill Strausbaugh and qualifying for the tour, and was out on tour for a couple of years. But he hurt his shoulder and had to take a year off. And, this is Bill Mallon for you. He ended up writing a book on medicine in the Olympics, and then just decided over time, as he tried to get back into golf, that didn't quite work. And he went to med school and became really a renowned, I think it's shoulders that he did, Chris. Pretty sure shoulders.
Yep.
But Bill was, we laugh about this. There was intramural basketball, and the KAs at Duke were the football players that didn't have any money, but we had a good basketball team. And Bill was refereeing games to make extra money. And So we played on the golf team together, and he's refereeing games, and intramural games that could get pretty rough, at times. But we had a lot of fun doing that. He said, if I'd have called every foul on you, you'd have never made it out of the first quarter. Jeez. So I had the ref in my pocket on some of those. But we roomed together on trips, golf trips, and we kind of, back then it wasn't very fancy for meals and things. So Bill and I would get the Kentucky Fried Chicken. And boy, Bill would, he'd dive into that stuff. And after 2 pieces, his face was shining, from that Kentucky Fried Chicken stuff. That was, and we had such a good time, doing that. The Kentucky Fried Chicken in the room, and refereeing intramural basketball games. But I'm so proud of Bill. He's a brilliant man, a brilliant mind, and he's I'm sure made a difference with a lot of people with his surgeries and ability to push the envelope with what they're doing in that respective area, as they seem to be doing in so many fields. But Bill is somebody, seems like a lot of the guys I really look up to are younger than me. but he's certainly one of them. And, he's a special guy for sure. So next time you talk to him, tell him, once I got football talking here, geez, I couldn't shut him up. He just kept going. And he'll just smile and then just say, referee, intramurals, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And he'll start laughing.
I will bring that up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Chris, thank you for thinking of me and working me into the podcast here. It's a privilege. And just thinking about things that happened to me in my life, just puts a smile on my face. When I go downstairs to get my cocktail, I'm going to have a big smile on my face.
Well, that's good news. That's the goal. Dennis, thank you so much for your time. I hope we get this privilege of catching up with you again sometime later on.
That'd be great, Chris. If you're coming through Baltimore around it, give me a holler. Come over and I'll show you around caves. Maybe we'll play around.
I'd love to do it. Take care, Dennis. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Chris. Bye-bye.
See you, Dennis. Any questions about why that guy is in the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame? My goodness, what an outstanding individual and so well connected. I mean, my goodness, the people that he was around as he was developing his career early on, and then obviously in college and afterwards, and being in a Ryder Cup assistant captain, good friends with our good friend Bob Ford, and all those guys that he talked about playing alongside of, right? Andy North and Tom Kite and all of those guys. Bill Mallon, a wonderful friend of this show. He's the guy that introduced me to Dennis. So thank you very much, Bill, for putting us together. What an incredible story. What an incredible time. An incredible man. And to spend 31 years, be the first director of instruction up there at Caves Valley, one of the premier golf courses in the country, right? I mean, Fred Ridley is a member there, Jay Siegel, Danny Yates. I mean, those guys all around up there. I'm dumbfounded. That's how great this guy is and all the things that he has been able to achieve over the course of his career. You got to believe I'm going to have him back on the show to hear more about all of the things that he has done. Get into a little more detail about some of the things that he has done. But from what he just took us through, the timeline of his career, outstanding. No doubt that he is a Hall of Famer and just a tribute to the game of golf. So looking forward to catching up with Dennis, hopefully a little bit later on in the year. Coming up next, we'll get our regular monthly visit from Dr. Bob Winters. Before I bring Doc into the show, I was talking with Eddie Dry, VP of Domestic Sales for Strixon Cleveland Golf, at the PGA Merchandise Show earlier this year, and I said, Eddie, I like your CBX full-face wedges. How can they help an average player like me play better? Here's what he had to say.
An average player, I use one, and I'm in some lies that you can't even believe. And I need all the help I can get. And the face is bigger, and the grooves go all the way up and all the way out to the toe. So if you hit it on the toe, you miss it, bam, there's a groove. So I like that. So I carry a 58.
There you have it, folks. Try the new CBX full-face wedges from Cleveland Golf. I also want to give a shout out to my friends over at On Point Golf and their great On Point ball marker. Get the #1 ball marker in the game of golf. OnPoint is the only three-dimensional ball marker out there, with alignment technology and a removable coin that is approved to use according to the rules of golf. As you know, putting is all about line and pace. Mark your ball with OnPoint, engage with your three-dimensional ball marker, and have more confidence in your line, execute the putt, and you're going to lower your scores. Do what the likes of Jim Furyk, PGA professionals, and amateurs alike are doing now. They use the #1 ball marker in golf and they lower their scores. You know Ken Duke and Thongchai JD. They won for the first time on the PGA Tour in 2023, and they were using an OnPoint ball marker. Get yours at onpointgolf.us and make more putts. And oh, by the way, you can also customize the removable coin for any club, event, or corporate outing. They make really great tee gifts and custom products. That's also going to help lower your score. I use OnPoint ball markers. Mine is black and gold, 3D black golf ball with a gold line down the middle to help me line up my putts. It's like having a 15th club in my bag. It's helped my game. Why wouldn't you let it help yours? Again, onpointgolf.us. See what I'm talking about. Order yours today. Now back in his regular monthly time slot is Dr. Bob Winters. As you guys know, Dr. Bob joins me on the first Tuesday of every month. He is a sports psychologist, an author, and a professional educator. He has his own performance enhancement company in Orlando, Florida. He is also the resident sports psychologist at the Ledbetter Golf Academy at Reunion Resort in Orlando. He has worked with several great players out on the PGA, LPGA, and LIV tours, including Brooks Koepka, Tony Finau, Lee Westwood, Justin Rose, and Michelle Wie. And I'm very excited he is back with me again here this month on Next on the Tee. Hey, Dr. Bob, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Chris. Always great to be with you. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. So, Doc, I want to start our time this week by talking about the Women's U.S. Open and the unfortunate start that we watched Nelly Korda get off to, as I'm sure you saw. She made a 10 on the par 3 third hole, so her U.S. Open was almost literally over before it even got really started. Talk about her bad day at the office, and is it possible for someone like her or us to recover when we've had a bad hole like that so early in our round?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's like trying to step up, to the plate and hit a home run when you ask me a question like that, Chris. So I'll tell you what, I always tell my players, it's tough when you make bogeys. You have a couple of bogey trains, and a double bogey, it will leave a mark every now and then. But if you're on the third hole of the U.S. Open and you are really, almost the prima donna, of the tours of the Women's, Golf Association, you're coming in there hot. The expectations are so high, and you hit a great shot on a par 3 with a little bit of wind behind you. And that's really what Nelly did. She really hit a great shot, and it just flew on her, hit the back of the green, went into, the bunker. And I think she got just a little bit unlucky when she actually tried to hit back, and that green was so firm. And as her ball was rolling on her second shot past the pin, it went over the green. It sort of hit, a sprinkler head, which actually propelled the ball even more into that creek. And so now, here she thought she hit a good, drive, a really good tee shot, thought she hit a very nice, very workable sand, game shot. And now she's going to the other side and she's dropping. Now here she is. And we've seen this happen many times on number 12 at the Masters, whether it be Freddie Couples, whether it be Jordan Spieth, or any number of players. But we haven't seen it all that much here in a U.S. Women's Open. And Nelly takes, that first little shot. And I think it was probably about 35 to 40 yard shot. And sometimes you try to get a little bit cute with that shot. And she just tried to hit it, finesse it in there too tight, and it actually hits and comes back into the water. Comes back, and she actually does it again. And, the next time she finally gets it on, and she two putts, and she walks off, of that green. I mean, and it's almost like shell shock. And this is what everyone, I want to, talk to you and everyone else about. It has happened to everyone. It's happened to me a couple of times, and it's probably happened to everybody who plays the game. And I thought that this was something just about as grievous and as shocking as back in 2016, I believe it was, with Ernie Els, where he hits the green in 2 and 7 putts and actually goes to, the second tee, making a 9 on the first hole. And everybody, remembers, Ernie just having sort of what he called the heebie-jeebies. And it happens to you so fast. I think, Chris, that's the thing that really is sort of so shocking, is that you're trying to slow yourself down, but it just feels, like time and the events are getting away from you. So one of the things that we have to do, and I always tell players, is that you have to accept the reality. Now, this is really hard. I mean, it's hard to accept taking a 10. And I'm sure that, Nellie, even in her press conference, showed true class. She said, listen, I didn't really feel all that great today. I mishit a couple of shots. Maybe I could have done something a little bit different. But in the end, it's golf and it's a bad day at the office. And she comes back the next day and what? I think she shoots a 70, still misses the cut. But it's really hard, when you actually have a huge number because you feel that you have damaged a round and taken you right out of the tournament. Now that's at the highest level. For all of the, everybody else and the rest of us, what can we learn from this? The game really favors no one. The game shows no compassion. I mean, it is what it is. And so when we start talking about acceptance in golf and sports psychology, acceptance doesn't mean, oh, okay, it's a shot, no big deal. It doesn't mean that you have to like it. We don't have to acquiesce and just, sort of shrug it off. And by the way, when I say acceptance, Chris, it's not a weak human attribute or condition. Acceptance really comes about from acknowledging and embracing the notion that something painful or dismissive or off-putting has just been realized. And you need to move forward without this grievance or heavy-heartedness. And that's really what, trying to stay in the flow state. But it happens so fast. And I know that a lot of people, have been shell-shocked. I know that Ernie Els was. And he had been talking about having some short, putting problems prior to that first round at the Masters. And he went out there and he told everyone, I'm going to try something a little bit different. It really backfired on him. But the next day he came back and shot 73, to his credit. There have been other, sort of huge holes. I want to go back to 1998, right down the road from me at Bay Hill. John Daly, grip it and rip it. Big John, he comes to the sixth hole, which is that, 602-yard horseshoe-shaped par 5, but it's 362 yards from the back tee and as the crow flies across the lake to the green. And do you remember that, Chris, when he actually took and hit 6 balls into the water and sort of did
Yes.
and sort of did a tin cup right there and kept asking for the ball? I mean, that's what I love about Big John. He was in for a penny, in for a pound, and he walked off of that green with a record-setting 18. Now, how do you walk away from that? Well, John Daly went to the 7th hole, that 200-yard par 3, and made a 2. And so we want to talk about bounce back, but John is one of those type of people. It's like water off a duck's back. And that's really what we have to understand, is that being able to acknowledge that something bad has happened and you understand the truth and the finality of this situation, the sooner you can actually adapt and move on and release it. And it's really tough to release it. So for everyone out there who's having a bad hole, the first thing I can do is, okay, just slow down here. Just let's not, let this be a runaway train. Let's just take, a few moments, take a couple of deep breaths. Let's really think about the next shot. Because what happens in this, what I call this emotional shock or this anger or this frustration, we really want to get to the next shot to hit it quickly so we can actually end this disaster. And that's one of the worst things you can do. Because what happens, you actually start taking this emotional garbage from shot to hole to round to round. So that's the biggest thing we can understand, is that you have to, put closure on, a bad hole or a bad feeling or a bad shot. And, you do that by taking sort of a mental time out and actually just kind of walking away, regrouping, and actually putting the club back in your bag. We see this a lot in tennis. A player has a double foot fault. They'll go back, they'll talk to themselves. They might admonish themselves, but sometimes it's positive self-talk. They'll be stringing their racket, and they're actually just trying to actually get back into this moment. They're trying to say, hey, okay, that's already happened. So this whole notion with Nelly, it happens to everyone. And I got to tell you a personal story, that happened to me, and it probably is maybe even the best thing that ever happened to me, Chris. It was back when I was 17 years old, and I was playing at Green Acres Golf Club in Kokomo, Indiana, in our Mid-Indiana Conference sectional. And I was playing with the two-time defending state Indiana high school boys champ. He was in my group. He was playing in a rival high school. And as we were coming down the 17th hole, I was so small. I was only about 4'10", 4'11". I could crush my driver maybe back then about 185, 190 yards. But I was straight, and I was straight down the middle, and I had a lot of wedges. And at the end of the 17th hole, I did something that I didn't do all day. I totaled up my score, and I realized I was even par. And I was a couple of shots ahead, of this other player. As I walked to the 18th tee, I started to get a little bit of adrenaline. And I remember I crushed my drive out there, probably about 210, 215 yards. Probably the biggest drive of the day. But as I was walking down the fairway, I heard a couple of people say, I think Winters could win this. I think he could actually, do this. And what happened, and the reason why I talk about this right now, is that it was so real. And it's as if I'm actually walking down the fairway right now, remembering it. And it's as if my head was starting to blow up like a balloon, and it just came off of my head and went someplace else. And I think that's what happens. We get ahead of ourselves, or we start reflecting on the past, all the bad things, or think about, project into the future. Wow, this could happen. I could win this. And I thought about having my picture in the paper and how proud my parents would be. And this would be, one of my biggest victories up to this point in my golfing life. And as I went to my next shot, I hit what we call a fungo, which is sort of a pop-up, sky ball about 100 yards with a 3-wood. Went to my next ball, and I walked a little bit faster and took a 5-wood and yanked it up, by the bunker. And now this is really where it gets good, because it happens to so many players at every level, from the top on down. And I, had written the book Mistake-Free Golf. And one of the things I found out in doing interviews with over about 500, professionals, is that everyone makes the same mistakes. Not to a greater degree than most of us, but they still make these same mistakes. They rush, they hurry, they create doubt in their mind. And I actually left my first ball in the bunker. I sculled my next one over the green, and I got it back, and I 3-putted, and I made an 8 on the par 5, the final hole there at Green Acres. So I took a triple bogey, and I remember it took me from first to fourth, and I didn't advance to the state, and I was just shocked. I was just, flabbergasted. It happened so fast. And I think from that day, I realized, that the mind and controlling your emotions is probably one of the biggest things, that we need to help people with to understand this game. And I remember an interview many years ago, with Kari Webb, and she was talking about how, she had just played on natural instinct and confidence. And, it's easy, to trust yourself when everything's going really well. But people asked her, what are you doing when you play so well? She said, I never really questioned it, and really, I didn't want to question it, but I didn't know really what I was doing. So she said, now, as I've gotten older, I'm trying to remember what it was I did when I played my very best golf. And she says, I'm relearning the mental process all over again, because I'm trying to learn how to do it now, like I did when I didn't know what I was doing. And so that's the big thing that I'm trying to help people understand. You have to understand that this is a game of playing one shot at a time. One shot can really get you going, but one bad shot, coupled with another bad shot, and then, stringing those bad shots together, those are the ones that really leave a mark. So we have to get very good at really parking our anger, putting closure on a bad shot, putting that behind us, and moving forward. And I think that's really what Nelly Korda will actually, learn from this. And everybody has, a bad round, a bad hole, a bad day. and it leaves a little bit of scar tissue. But if we can learn anything from it, we learn that we're human and that we can bounce back. And I think that's really what, we can learn from this US Open. I mean, it was a great US Open. I mean, it was tough. You had to hit a lot of shots, and Yuka Saso did it again. I mean, she won at the Olympic Club. She won here at Lancaster, Pennsylvania. A tremendous talent. And she's won 2 LPGA events. They just happen to both be US Opens.
Indeed. So let's take that and go a step farther, because we know how dominant Nelly Korda has been this season. One of the great seasons of all time to this point, and we're only about halfway through it. But Doc, I know you've worked with several Asian players, several American players. Without Nelly leading the charge in this U.S. Open, because she didn't make the cut, we only had 2 U.S. players in the top 30. Allie Ewing and Andrea Lee both tied for third, but only 2 U.S. players out of the top 30 in this event. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts, because you have coached a lot of Asian girls and a lot of American girls. Is there a difference for how they prepare, or, why do you think we've had such a huge Asian invasion on the LPGA Tour?
Well, this is a great question, because I'm sitting back thinking about, the men's tour, and we had Isao Aoki, he was one of the first, Jumbo Ozaki, Mr. Liu, TC Chen, KJ Choi, but it was Sari Pak, with, David Ledbetter and Tom Creevy, who'd done a wonderful job, sort of grooming and training her. But Sari really led that, what we call the Soul Sisters, and really led that Korean invasion. And these girls just came over and have really just dominated. And I think it's part, of the culture of, of the Far East, of the Asian culture. I think they, we could, there's so many different, ways we could go here, but I think, what has happened is that a lot of times some of these, families take, these young girls, these young players that have some proclivity, some talent, and they actually say, listen, this is what, we're training you for. We're grooming you to become, a professional golfer. And that starts from a very early age of 5 and 6, and they're working 8 to 10 hours a day. I mean, their whole life. And that's the problem, is that, I don't know how much academic, training they get. They get a lot of golf training. And, in their culture, and this is the one thing that I've seen, is that with, the Asian players, I don't really see them ever show a lot of emotion as far as crying, getting emotionally upset. They're very stern, extremely stoic, very emotionally disciplined. And the only time I think I've ever seen, any of my players cry, that, were Asian players, where they came from Japan, the Philippines, China, or wherever, they cried for happy. They were so happy, so overjoyed. And maybe that joy was a relief because they've worked so hard. But I think it's, the precision, the skill set, and I think it's, the parental influence, because, when I've seen, some of these young Asian players, they're always there with one or both sets of parents. And many times it's usually the father, with the daughter. And they're very strict, very tough, and they make them work very, very hard. Now, it's not to say, that our American girls, aren't working really hard, but a lot of them, are, academic, they're student athletes, they're playing, in Division I, Division II schools, and they're doing very well. But, it's funny because, you and I have been talking here earlier this week about, where, is sort of this American strength, because the dominant players that I remember, many years ago, we had Beth Daniels, we had Betsy King, we had Dottie Pepper, Rosie Jones, Nancy Lopez, Meg Mallon, Hollis Stacy. I mean, Hollis Stacy, 3-time U.S. Women's Open champion. I mean, these are some unbelievable players. Then you had some international players come in. You had Annika, you had Suzanne Pedersen. They're coming all over internationally. But, if we take a look at this U.S. Open, if we take a look at this leaderboard, I mean, you take a look, and, the Korean flag, the Japanese flag. I really don't remember seeing any other. I don't know if I saw the Canadian flag there with the Hendersons up there or not. But, I saw, Andrea and Allie, and God bless them. They did a great job. I thought they played really well. But hats off to Yuka. There's nothing, listen, when you win 2 U.S. Opens, and you are the youngest player to do so, on the LPGA, to win 2 of them, that's really something. So you can't take away, that talent, but I think that's part of it. But this is, the other side of it is, Chris, is that many of these, young ladies, and we know that, girls really advanced, a little bit more in age and mature a little bit faster than young boys, is that many of them, become stale, stagnant, and burned out by the time they're 18, 19. I mean, they are just really, tired, and they've been really working it. When we talk about work, I mean, I don't think anyone really understands how hard, people work. And I remember, at being at the U.S. Open at Cherry Hills when one of our players, Birdie Kim, ends up, chipping it in, from the sand to beat Morgan Pressel, and Morgan was out in the fairway. And I just remember, later that week that all of our Korean players were around. They were looking at, sort of the replay, and it was just they have that bond, and they call it, the Soul Sisters, like Seoul, Korea, not SOULSEOUL, the Soul Sisters. And there's a special bond, among them as well, and they push each other. So there is a lot of push, among all of those, different players out there on the LPGA tour. But it is a unbelievable competitive tour. It is tough. I mean, these women are fantastic players, and I don't care, what part of the globe you come from, but when you put, the tee in the ground and you play professional golf, I don't think, the average sort of observer, golfer understands really how hard they work, how much pressure they're under, and, what they go through in order to perform, to this level. So it's pretty exciting. And I that's one of my thoughts, that we kind of talked about tonight.
Doc, switching gears just slightly, your junior students are out there having a tremendous amount of success, including Brendan Valdez, who plays for the now national champion Auburn Tigers. Talk about this young man.
Brendan, I've been with him for many years now, and he, played here, in Dr. Phillips High School, fantastic player. Went, to Auburn, Coach Nick Clenard, when I was coaching at University of Virginia, Nick was a great player, played for Wake Forest. Coach Nick has done a great job down there at Auburn. And, Brendan, when, we first started, talking, he said, what do you think? This is the way I do it. This is the way I think. And I said, listen, if you can actually, just keep harnessing that, taking ownership and feeling confident about your game, there's, the sky's the limit. And that's exactly really what he's done. He's made Ping first team All-American. He helped propel and, make some of the winning points, for Auburn, to win, the team title. Just yesterday, he just missed in a playoff, to be in the U.S. Open at Pinehurst. He's the first alternate. But other than that, Chris, let me tell you, he's actually, for the last 4 to 5 years, has put on a huge charity event here at Orange Tree Golf Club, which is my private golf club here in Orlando. And Orange Tree is a great golf course. That's where, Brendan grew up, so many other, great, tour players, play out of. And it is one of the tightest golf courses, that I've ever, played. And I say it's tight, and I've said it about 2 or 3 of my books, is that if you can play Orange Tree, you can play anywhere in the world, because it's tight because the ducks walk down the fairway single file. That's how it's tight. And a lot of people call it hallway golf. But I think he's actually done a great job, understanding what it takes, to hit the ball straight, to move the ball. But he's put on this charity event that helps, young people, pediatric, children that have cancer. And it is a huge, huge thing. And he started doing this when he was a junior in high school. He said, I want to do something. I want to do something that's going to benefit, these young kids, that have cancer, that are going through a lot of stuff. So anyone that knows Brendan Valdez, I mean, and he and his mom and dad, they're just great people. And he's just somebody, to watch for the future. He's one of those that says, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to get it done. And I remember another guy who told me the same thing, when I was working with him with 17, 18, 19, and that was Brooks Koepka. And, just pretty much, out of that same cloth is that, if you don't, believe me and other people aren't going to believe in me, just step aside, and watch, and I'll make you believe. But I just had another, young player from Palm Beach Gardens today. His name is Pavel Czar. He plays for the Benjamin School down there in Jupiter, Palm Beach Gardens. And he just, shot a 66 out in Idaho earlier today, shot 5 under to win, that first leg of that U.S. amateur qualifier. So hopefully, that's going to be big things for him. So, congratulations to Pavel. I've got, players that are doing all these high school sectionals and regionals all over the country. And my college players, have done great. So it's been, a really busy time. And tomorrow I'm going to, do a little R&R, but a little clinic, session myself, going out to Las Vegas and playing some golf courses out there, Chris. And I wish you were going with me.
I wish I was going with you too.
Well, we're heading to Rio Seco. We're going to go to Cascada, TPC, Summerlin, Painted Desert. I think, there's a whole bunch of them out there. I'll tell you, hopefully I'll be 4 under before breakfast here one of these days. So
Indeed.
Yeah.
Doc, before I let you go, remind our listeners, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're doing and follow you, whether it's on your website or it's on social media?
Well, it's great, to be here, with you, Chris, on your great podcast. But they could find me at, theconfidencedoctor.com. You could find me at davidledbetter.com. And you can actually just Google my name, Dr. Bob Winters, and you can find me. And I'm always motivated, to accept, new students. And I love helping people get better. And as I always say, the moment you change your mind, you change your game.
That's awesome. You're the best, Doc. I can't thank you enough for all the great content you've given me and given our listeners so far this season. I'm very excited to find out, how you do when you go out to Las Vegas and play all those great golf courses that you just listed off for us. And then I'm always excited to see what you're going to bring back to the show when you join me again in July.
Well, Chris, when I do, if I make a 10 out there, I will tell you how I handled it. Okay. I'm not going to I'm not going to make myself a case study, but I'll tell you, if I actually make a 10 out there, I will tell you how it really feels. Okay.
All right. Well, I hope that doesn't happen.
It won't. All right. Thanks, my friend. Okay.
Take care, Doc.
Take care. Bye-bye.
That is the great Dr. Bob Winters. TheConfidenceDoctor.com is the website. You can find him at DR for Dr. Obviously Bob Winters on social media. And I tell you what, the mental skills that he is passing on to all of us each month when he comes on the show is something that is making, I know it's making me better, and I'm sure it's making a lot of people out there better. And as he says, you change your mind, change your game, right? I mean, it's getting our mindset in a positive way. I mean, that's the bottom line. How can we be more positive, have more positive self-talk, and put the bad shots that we have or a bad hole that we have in the rear view and then hit the next shot, right? That's what Ben Hogan always used to say. The most important shot in golf is the next one. That's kind of the theme I get a lot from Doc is, hey, let's put all that garbage that we've just been through. Let's put that aside. Now let's move forward. And he gives us the tools in order to be able to do that, because it's one thing to say it to ourselves, but it's the other thing to have the tool set that he is giving us to get there. So again, theconfidencedoctor.com is the website. At DR Bob Winters is where you can find him on social media. I'll find out how he does out in Las Vegas. Looking forward to having him back on the show again in the beginning. All right, my friends, that's going to put a bow on part 1 of this edition of Next on the Tee. I hope you'll come back and join me for part 2 and listen into my conversations with Randy Peisch and Jeff Smith. My sincere thanks to Dennis Satyshur and Dr. Bob Winters for being such a great part of this week's show. Folks, I can't thank you enough for all the wonderful support you continue to give Next on the Tee and for making us a part of your weekly golf content. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.